Today I'd like to talk to you about a book called All the King's Men by Robert Penn. Yes! The two main characters are Willie Stark, a politician who knows he's destined for greatness, and Jack Burton, a rebellious reporter who decides to tag along for the ride. Together they confront local big shots, the Senate, intolerance and bigotry, crime in their hometown, their city, their state, and eventually their world. Well, no, not really. But that would be cool. Sugar Boy was driving the Cadillac, and it was a pleasure to watch him. Or it would have been if you could detach your imagination from the picture of what near a couple tons of expensive mechanism looks like after it's turned turtle 3 times at 80, and could give your undivided attention to the exhibition of muscular coordination, satanic humor, and split-second timing which was Sugar Boy's when he whipped around a hay wagon in the face of an oncoming gasoline truck and went through the rapidly diminishing aperture close enough to give the truck driver heart failure with one rear fender and wipe the snot off a mule's nose with the other. But the boss loved it. I don't want anything in God's world out of them, or anybody. And I don't want to settle down, and I don't want to get married, and I don't want any other job. And as for money... Son, she said, and turned her hands together on her lap. And as for money, I don't want any more than I've got. I was accustomed to $30 suits, shirts that had been worn 2 days, a bi-monthly haircut, unpolished shoes, a hat with a brim that looped and sagged, and fingernails always broken and sometimes dirty. And I regarded the habit of pressing pants as something which had not come to stay. And as the pressure to improve my grooming increased, so the resistance increased too. More and more often, accustomed objects of my wardrobe disappeared to be replaced by proclaimed and surreptitious gifts. Originally I had interpreted these gifts as springing from a misguided and love-inspired attempt to give me pleasure. In the end, I understood that my pleasure was the last consideration involved. "Well, you want me to hold your hand about it?" Suddenly I was sore at him. Why did he come to me? What did he expect me to do? What made him think I wanted to hear about what the state needed? Hell, I knew. Everybody knew. It wasn't any secret. What it needed was some decent government. But who the hell was going to give it, and who cared if nobody did or ever did? What did he come whining to me for about that? Or about how bleeding much he wanted to be governor because he lay and thought about it in the night? All that was in me as I suddenly felt sore at him and asked him snottily if he expected me to hold his hand. He was looking at me slowly, giving me the once-over, reading my face. But he didn't look sore, which surprised me, for I had wanted to make him sore enough to get out. But there wasn't even surprise in his look. "No, Jack," he said finally, shaking his head. "I wasn't asking you for sympathy. Whatever happens, I'm not asking you or anybody else for sympathy. As far as allusions in this book to other media, Dante. As long as hope remains a thread of green." "Well," then he looked at me from toe to crown and said, "You must be Svengali." "Yeah," I said to him, "I'm Svengali." So Laroue's dictionary translates Svengali as manipulative. There's a book called Trilby, and there's a character named Svengali. They're just saying Jack's manipulative. A poem to tell the adversary, who is the prince of this world, that he could not ever change Kate into Nan. The mad poet was quite wrong, for anybody could change Kate into Nan, or if indeed the prince couldn't change Kate into Nan, it was only because Kate and Nan were exactly alike to begin with. And the line that's relevant is, "Nor canst thou ever change Kate into Nan." And the poem's written to the devil, so that's always fun. I read the first book I had laid hand to the first afternoon when I found I couldn't sit there any longer in that silence which bulged and creaked with all the unsaid words. It was the first volume of the works of Anthony Trollope. That was a safe bet. Anthony never upset any equilibriums. Anthony Trollope is probably an author that you encountered in one of those 300 authors in as many pages anthologies that they distribute at random intervals in schools. He wrote The Way We Live Now. As far as allusions to this book and other media, All the President's Men came out in 1974, and obviously they're both allusions to the nursery rhyme. Oh, the nursery rhyme. Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, all the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. This is an allusion to the nursery rhyme, but since this and this both came out in America in 46 and 74, All the President's Men was probably conscious of All the King's Men. It would still have been in people's minds. I think it might have been. Some people. And there are other versions of this same story. Robert Penn himself penned 3 different stage plays. Penned. I got it from the library, so I don't have a physical copy of it, but if you're looking for a play that people haven't done for a while, I'm as bad as that guy from Midsummer Night's Dream, Bottom the Weaver. I want to play everybody. Besides that, there's also another version of the novel itself where Willie Stark is still referred to as Willie Talos, which probably harkens back to when it was set in Italy as opposed to Louisiana, so it's T-A-L-O-S, like the character from Edmund Spenser's The Fairy Queen, as opposed to T-A-L-U-S, which is the bones in your feet. it's sort of in the center of all the tarsals, and prior to World War I and the increase in aviation accidents, it wasn't seen to be broken very often. This is actually relevant to the story because Adam is a surgeon, and since it takes place between World War I and World War II, it stands to reason that he would have encountered some talar fractures. In 1949, there was a version that won Best Picture and Best Actor and Best Supporting Actress, but I have no clue what happens in it because I'm always way too busy yelling at the screen every time I see something they've changed. But there was another version. But again, I am usually too busy yelling "Qu'est-ce que vous..." I'd say this is a time when the book is better than all the movies, not because the movies have any deficits. In fact, in both cases, I think that they're fairly strong cinematic things on their own. But just because it's a thick book and it's sort of complicated to put into any limited amount of time. If you had one of those 8-hour director's cuts, I would probably be happy. The opera Willie Stark, which is really cool, and actually of the three probably sticks the closest to the plot. Apart from the fact that when Willie Stark and Jack Burton are sitting around talking about death and taxes, they occasionally burst into song. Little things that might increase the epicness of the book. The language is a little out of date. Huckleberry Finn kind of out of date, and it comes up in the first paragraph. I just wanted to kind of mention that because the first time I was reading along at the age of 13, I was like, this is great, what? I'm going to call it the Willie Stark Hospital, and it will be there a long time after I'm dead and gone, and you are dead and gone, and all those politicians are dead and gone, and anybody, no matter he hasn't got a dime, can go there. And will vote for you, I said. I'll be dead, he said. And you'll be dead. And I don't care whether he votes for me or not. He can go there and bless your name, I said. Damn it. He shook me hard, crumpling my lapel in his big hand. You stand there grinning like that. Get that grin off your face. Get it off for all. Listen, I said. I'm not any of your scum, and I'm still grinning when I please. Jack. Hell, Jack. You know I don't mean that. It's just you stand there and grin. Damn it! Can't you understand? Can't you? He held the lapel and thrust the big face at me, his eyes gouging into mine, saying, Can't you see? I'm not going to let them muck with it. The Willie Stark Hospital, can't you see? And I'm going to get me the best man there is to run it. Yes, sir, the best there is. Yes, sir, up in New York, they told me to get him. He was the man. And Jack, you. Yeah, I asked. You're going to get him. I disengaged myself from the grasp on my lapel, straightened it, and dropped into a chair. Get who? I asked. Dr. Stanton, he said. Dr. Adam Stanton. I almost bounced right out of the chair. How long have you been having these symptoms? I asked. You been seeing any pink elephants? You get Stanton, he said. You're hearing voices, I said. You get him, he repeated dourly. Boss, I said. Adam's an old pal of mine. I know him like a brother. And I know he hates your guts. I'm not asking him to love me. I'm asking him to run my hospital. I'm not asking anybody to love me, not even you. We all love you, I mimicked Tiny. You know how all us boys feel. Get him, he said. I stood up, stretched, yawned, moved toward the door. I'm leaving, I declared. Tomorrow, when you are in possession of your faculties, I'll hear what you've got to say. And I shut the door behind me. Tomorrow, when he was in full possession of his faculties, I heard what he had to say, and it was, Get Stanton.